This painting here, this is the photograph of the model that I'm going to work from, and it's not that complicated as far as drawing to worry about the composition coming out. So on this one here, I just started out by toning my canvas with just some transparent oxide red and some green, some viridian green, and then just kind of rubbing it a bit. And then I just started painting right in there. What I did is I measured out the how large I wanted the head to be so that it would be in the right place and that I wouldn't go off the page. And then I very carefully put in the head. So I made a few marks up at the top of her head and the bottom of her chin, very carefully measured it out and checked to make sure that everything would fit in there. And then just started with my brush, just kind of blocked it in, and then just started massing in my shapes. So here you can see I'm starting to put in the background a little bit, some of that dark around it, and I'm just going to just paint it one thing at a time and pretty much finish as I go. So here I've finished out more of the hair and the face and gotten the different colors of her face working. So here you can just see it on the larger canvas there, you know, the small area that I'm starting with. And I'm just trying to finish it and trying to make it interesting as I go along. So now here I'm just starting to put down a little bit of the arm. And what I'm doing is I'm just measuring off of what I've already put down. So if I'm careful and get that part right, when I go to the next thing, I can just take a measurement from what I've already done and compare it to see how far out that side arm goes. And notice also, as I'm blocking in the big shapes, even though I go one thing to the other, when I go to my next object, the next part, like the arm here, I'm still trying to mass in my larger shapes, and then I'll be putting details on top of that. So it's kind of the same process, and you can kind of see some of the purple I'm putting just to the right of her arm, which is going to be a little bit of a glow color. So you can start to see now, working my way up to blocking in the hand and the rest of that dress. Again, just starting with the large shadow masses. And you'll see also I'll change the hand as I go. This was copying the photograph a little bit more. Later I'm going to actually slightly change her fingers to be the way that I want them to be. So this painting was also a 16 by 20, I believe. And so it's not that large, so these close-ups can kind of really show you the brushwork. Now I want you to notice too, as I'm blocking in this background, even though it's going to be mostly dark, I'm using a bit of mineral spirits in my brush, and some of it's being very washy, but I'm still trying to put the brushwork down, even though it's just dark back there. You know, the photograph doesn't have much information in it. I'm just trying to use that as kind of my design element. So you're just playing with the brush. Everybody has different ways they like to put things down. Some with a palette knife, some thick, some thin. Here I'm just trying to use a bristle brush and leave it show through a little bit. I'll put a few layers over this. So, and some people may like to stop at this kind of a stage and leave it extremely vignette-y. Certainly I've seen some beautiful ones by like Jeremy Lipkin and Richard Schmid and Sargent, especially when he did some of his watercolors, where they would leave, this would almost be the finished, where they would just leave these strokes to really emphasize that abstract element. Here you can see the whole canvas as it's just slowly starting to emerge. And this is a challenge, deciding when you want to stop. Again, it's just all different artists will decide, okay, maybe this would be the final painting. You could stop here, especially when you haven't drawn something out. The whole time I knew I wanted to work out most of this whole scene, and I rarely leave them as complete vignettes, but that's just my personal preference. Here's a close-up where you can see a little bit of the background. As some of those first washes dry, then I put a few more over them to the right, and that's just such a fun thing. I think that even without seeing the rest of the painting, to me is interesting. So I'm always looking for that, always trying to get that balance and to have some parts of it that really stay abstract and interesting just by itself. Those brushworks. I just love brushwork even, you know, on its own. So here you can see the bottom of the skirt starting to take shape. It's really more of the movement of it that I was interested in, because certainly the center of the interest is going to be the face. Now you can see in the face, one thing I wanted to point out to you is, you know, this is essentially the finished face. There may be a couple little strokes here or there, but I want you to also notice how I'm not going into putting in things like the nostril. This is a smaller head on this painting, and it's also in the lips. I'm not going for really as dark accents in the lips, because being this small, surrounded by dark, it tends to blend together more. And so I'm more interested in the whole shape of that face and just suggesting some of those details of the features. It's more of the structure of how the light hits it and then goes into the shadows. And so by tying it together more, at least what I'm trying to do, is to have more of a sense of design and solidity to that face, rather than working out every single little detail. So when you see it more from this larger view now, I think you can kind of see how the face, you know, even though from the close-up you could see how little detail there was in there, you see how it holds together as a mass. It's more of that kind of that profile outline. And then in the background you can also see here where I've taken a palette knife and scraped a few darks and things over things to tie together a little bit of that frantic brushwork, so that it's not too attention-getting and overpowering. And then I think you can see along her left arm a little bit of that purplish glow that is hopefully suggesting the light and movement. And then the same thing down at her skirt on the left side of the painting. I've just added a few kind of loose brush strokes to give a sense of the movement of that skirt, even though that's obviously not in the photograph. It's just to kind of soften that edge and to give it almost a blur feel to it. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. Thanks for coming along with us to Spain. I hope it inspires you to go out and do your own adventures and surprise everyone with what you're going to see, what different viewpoint you'll bring to wherever it is you go, whether it's in your backyard or across the world.